Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience. And today we bring you the story of Muggsy Bogues. Now, this is a story that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. In fact, it was one of my very first story ideas when we started this podcast 3 years ago. And even though I grew up as a Lakers fan, I have always been taken by Muggsy and the way he played. I mean, he is one of those players that most basketball fans can relate to, and it is obvious why. His height. The man is only 5'3" or 160 centimeters. He was a guy that fans could relate to, and I hope that makes sense. When we see guys like Giannis, Jordan, Kareem, or Vince Carter, we see players who not only have height, but off the charts athleticism. It is very difficult to relate to these players because they live in a world that is beyond what most of us have ever experienced. We become envious that these players won the genetics lottery and were given bodies practically designed to be successful at basketball. But let us put athleticism aside for a moment and let us just talk about height. To be a person who reaches the height of 7 feet or taller puts that person on the extreme end of the bell curve on height. In fact, in today's world of over 7.5 billion people, there are only around 2,800 or 3,000 people who are 7 feet tall or taller. That is an extremely tiny portion of the total population. Let me put it this way. On average, only 1 out of every 2.5 million people reaches the height of 7 feet. That is how rare it is to be 7 feet tall, and the NBA has nearly 70 of them in the league right now. Again, it is extremely difficult to relate to this, but to relate to a person who is only 5'3" is incredibly easy. He sees things from the same perspective as the rest of us, and that is one of the reasons why he was so popular with kids. Because he is the same height as a kid. When Muggsy first entered the NBA, I was still in middle school and was already taller than him. That is what people loved so much about Muggsy, is that because of his height, he seemed like a regular person. He did not have to have custom tailored clothes or shoes like many NBA players do. He did not have to have special seats installed in his car to accommodate extreme height, like Shaq has to do. He represented a regular person just like me who fantasized about playing in the NBA, but he actually did it. With extremely short height, he broke through and played 14 seasons in the NBA. Now, he was never an All-Star or in the Hall of Fame. He did not even make an All-NBA team. He never led the league in assists or steals, but by any reasonable measure, he had a very successful NBA career. The average career in the NBA lasts only 2.5 years, so playing for 14 is almost 6 times the length of an average career. And because of his outgoing personality, he landed a great number of endorsements, and he was in the movie Space Jam. He was one of the 5 players who had their talent stolen by the Monstars, along with Charles Barkley, Larry Johnson, Sean Bradley, and Patrick Ewing. But it was never easy for Muggsy, not by a long shot. He had to prove himself at every level of basketball. No matter how well he played in youth basketball, he was doubted in high school. No matter how well he played in high school, he was doubted in college. And again, no matter how well he played in college, he was doubted in the NBA. That is a testament to Muggsy's perseverance. He had to change the minds of nearly everybody at every level he played. About the only people who believed in him were his teammates, who knew quite well what Muggsy brought to the court. But I want to take this story back to the beginning when Muggsy was a kid in the inner city of Baltimore, and I will share that right after this break.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with the story of Muggsy Bogues. As I mentioned before the break, he grew up in the inner city of Baltimore in a very rough neighborhood. The sounds of gunshots became a normal part of the background noise of living in the Lafayette Court housing projects. Murders took place regularly where he grew up. Now, as a kid, he even witnessed a murder take place while he was walking down the street. And that took me back to my own childhood. Now, I have never witnessed a murder, but I have witnessed other crimes in progress while I was a kid. And the best thing that a kid can do is to pretend to not have seen anything. Do not even look at the perpetrators. Just keep your head down and keep walking, and maybe pick up the pace a little. But do not run, because that only brings attention to yourself. Only run when you hear gunfire. Now, let us get back to Muggsy. As I have mentioned, he is 5'3" and is still the shortest player in NBA history by 2 inches. The next shortest player ever was Earl Boykins at 5'5". Then it was Spud Webb and Keith Jennings, both at 5'7". But it is not hard to figure out where Muggsy got his height, or lack of height. His mother Elaine is only 4'11", and his father Richard is 5'6". His siblings are all roughly the same height as Muggsy. I mean, when you have 2 short parents, you're going to get a bunch of short kids. But something that Muggsy did have, which is the key to him making the NBA, was extreme speed. He could run faster baseline to baseline than nearly every other player around. He had Allen Iverson type speed, and he had to have that to be successful. Obviously, he was at a disadvantage in height, so that only way for him to be successful is to outrun the taller players down court. Also, because of his compact size, he was able to change directions faster than any other player. He could get his defender moving one way, and then Muggsy would change direction on a dime and give himself the space necessary to either shoot the ball or make a pass for an easy basket. And he had a 44-inch vertical leap when he made the NBA. That meant that he could touch the rim and even dunk a tennis ball. Now, not even Kobe Bryant or Vince Carter had 44-inch verticals. My point in saying all of this is this: while Muggsy Bogues did not have the height that people would typically associate with being in the NBA, Muggsy did have superior athleticism in other areas like speed, jumping ability, and the changing of direction. In those areas, he was superior to the typical NBA athlete, because if you do not have height, then you have to have something. For Muggsy Bogues, he had pretty much everything else you could want for an NBA player, and that is why he stayed in the league for 14 years. Now, let us get back to his childhood. Growing up, there was another kid his same age who also lived in the Lafayette Court housing projects, and he is still Muggsy's best friend in the whole world. And his name is Reggie Williams. You might remember that name. He played 10 years in the NBA, mostly for the Denver Nuggets and the LA Clippers. Now, making it to the NBA is nearly impossible statistically speaking. Only 1 in every 8,000 high school basketball players will play in the NBA. The odds are not good. But to have two kids who were best friends since childhood both grow up to make the NBA, well, that's nearly unheard of. But it is probably what helped both of them to stay out of trouble. They had each other and they kept each other focused on basketball. Now, heading into high school, the school to go to as a basketball player was Dunbar High, which had a very strong reputation and an excellent coach. The coach had already won 4 Maryland State titles before Muggsy even got there. Unfortunately for Muggsy, he had to start his high school career at Southern High School due to unusual zoning in that part of Baltimore. He practically lived across the street from Dunbar but had to take the bus to Southern. He wanted to transfer badly to Dunbar, but the only way to do that back then was to claim that you wanted to study courses that were not offered at Southern, and there were some courses at Dunbar that Southern did not have. Dunbar offered courses in being a dental technician, so Muggsy claimed that he wanted to take dental technician courses, and that allowed him to transfer to Dunbar where he could play with his friends. But that took 2 years to make happen. That meant that Muggsy had to play 2 seasons at a school he did not want to play for, and for a coach that did not really appreciate or understand Muggsy's skills. The coach only saw someone who was just far too short to be taken seriously as a basketball player. Well, by junior year, he was able to transfer to Dunbar and rejoin his best friend Reggie Williams, who was able to make his own transfer happen much earlier. Now, here's the thing about those Dunbar teams of the early 1980s. They would destroy anyone when they had 2 future NBA players in the team. I mean, any high school with 2 future NBA players has a serious talent advantage. But Dunbar actually had 2 other future NBA players on the team as well. One was David Wingate, who played 15 years in the NBA, including a few years in Charlotte, where he once again teamed up with Muggsy. And there was also Reggie Lewis, who became an NBA All-Star and captain of the Boston Celtics. That amount of talent is almost too much to wrap your head around. 4 future NBA players on one high school team is incredible. Those Dunbar teams could dominate everyone at 4 out of the 5 positions, and the 5th starter, David Wood, was no slouch of a player. He could handle himself quite well at the high school level. That 1982 Dunbar team demolished all competition. They had a perfect record of 28-0 and won the Maryland State Championship, the 5th one for their coach. And at that point, David Wingate, who was a year older, graduated and moved on to Georgetown to play for Hall of Fame coach John Thompson. But Muggsy and the 2 Reggies were returning for senior year. Now that is still way more talent than any other high school in the entire state of Maryland. For their senior year, they went 31-0, and none of their games were even close. They brought a 6th title to their coach. Reggie Williams averaged 24 points and 13 rebounds that season, enough to get offers from schools all over the East Coast, but he decided to follow his old teammate David Wingate to also play for Georgetown University. And that made sense, since Georgetown is not that far of a drive because it is located in Washington, D.C., which is a fairly short distance from Baltimore. Reggie Lewis decided to accept a scholarship to Northeastern University located in Boston. He would play right under the noses of the Celtics, who would later draft him. As for Muggsy, he accepted a scholarship from Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. For Muggsy, it was going from the inner city to the country, and it was an enormous adjustment for him. If you have ever been to Winston-Salem, then you know that it is a city of 250,000 people, so it's not exactly the country. But according to Muggsy Bogues from his own autobiography, anything that is not the inner city is the country. The adjustment for Muggsy was not so much in terms of basketball. He always felt that he played with more talented players on his high school team than he did at Wake Forest, and he's probably right about that. No, the bigger adjustment for him was adjusting to the culture shock and the academic rigor of a private university. But I will cover his time at Wake Forest and his NBA career in part 2 of our profile on Muggsy Bogues, and that will be next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, and check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find shorter historical posts as well as comments and discussion starters on today's game. I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care and see you soon.
Have you ever noticed that the lower jaw is not protected in sports? Did you know that 10,800 concussions will happen today? This has been an upward trend for the past 50 years. I'm Dr. Michael Hutchison, a practicing neuromuscular dentist. When my son wanted to participate in football and rugby, I was afraid he was going to get a concussion. That fear led me to finding the missing link to reducing concussions. The fact is, the only part of the skull that is not protected in sports is the lower jaw. If you want to drastically reduce concussions, there are 3 basic jaw positions that affect concussions, and 2 of them are not good. The correct one is called physiologic jaw position. It will dissipate the force away from the brain. Knowing that, I designed an appliance that put my son's jaw in the right place. And as a result, he was concussion-free from 5th grade all the way to senior year. This jaw position takes those 10,800 concussions today down to 28. It's the key to concussion protection. As a parent, this is what you need to know. It's extremely important that the device you are using is on the lower jaw. Thickness of the device is important. Most importantly, it must position and hold you in your own unique personal physiologic jaw position. So if your child goes out on the field with the correct jaw position, your son or daughter will not one of those 10,800 concussions today. Get yours today at powerplusmouthguard.com. Use the promo code POWERUP2023 for 10% off.